Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Upper Tier Podcast. It's Thursday. It's Thursday Tier Talk, but a slightly different slant. We are in the off season, somewhat. So we've got a great show to bring you tonight. Back in the saddle. Missed a fair bit. How are we? The Dazzler.
I'm all good, pal. How are you?
Good, not too bad at all. Not too bad at all. I believe you want to kick us off tonight, don't you?
I want to kick us off tonight. Tonight's a special night. Well, it's a special day. It's the King's birthday today. My dad's birthday today, so I have something a little fruity here.
Very nice. I have a vodka and orange. I opened up one of those little Liverpool vodkas and all.
Right. Well, I have, the AU vodka.
Yes.
I have pink lemonade and West Coast Cooler.
That's a tidy combination. That's it. I'm still on holidays combination.
It feels like it,
Absolutely. Baz is in the chat there as always. Captain Caramel, how are we, Baz? Hope you're good.
Hey, Baz.
We were chatting earlier. I'll just do a little toast here. We haven't said what the toast was.
It was the King's birthday today. It's my dad's birthday today, and he would have been 77 years of age. He didn't make it, unfortunately, but he's still here in spirit. And I read a little something earlier, and it just touched me, and it was, don't be sad because it's over.
Yeah.
Be happy because it happened. Yeah.
What's it they say? You don't lament your heroes, you celebrate them.
Absolutely.
What was I going to say? Give us a bit of background to him. He was an Arsenal man, wasn't he?
He was a gunner.
He
was a gunner, which is mental. I don't really I kind of remember when I was growing up, nobody else in my house a football fan. I have 5 siblings, and between the 2 boys and the 3 girls, none of them like football. They've no interest, zero. And my dad was an Arsenal fan. I remember watching. When you're a kid and you sit through what the adult puts on the telly and stuff like that. And I remember, do you remember he went into the FA Cup final and the League Cup final in the same year, and the Sheffield Wednesday and both of them?
Yes.
Remember one of them went to a replay and they won both of them in the end, and they won the double, the cup double and stuff like that. I remember that, watching it with him, and he was like, come on. And, now as he got a bit older, the teams didn't really matter. He was just, he'd love watching a good game. I could be in work and he'd ring me and he'd go, you watching this match? Jesus, what a game. And I'd say, no, I'm on Courtney. Oh, you're missing out. And I'm like, oh, jeez, no, and I'd ring him on the way home and I'd say, what's the story? And he'd go, oh, Inter 2-0 up. Oh, Jesus. Oh, some lads here, And I'm saying, what's happening? He'd be telling you, oh, he's gone close. Oh, yeah, like this, Great crack. And then obviously,
watch-alongs.
Yeah, it was like a watch-along. It was like a watch-along on the way home.
Was he quite animated? He was.
Because you're probably talking 12, 15 years ago. So, at that stage, watch-alongs probably weren't big deals. But I was still getting it on the way down the M2. And he'd be saying, oh, yeah. And you'd always know if it was a good game or not. Because in his later years, he was a taxi driver. He retired from Aircom. He was an engineer there. Yeah. And he retired from Aircom. And he got a taxi license. And he'd always know if it was a good game or not, because you could set your watch by him, and he'd say, "I'll go out now at 9:15," And of course, if it got to 9:15 and it was a good game, he'd say, "I'll hang on till the end," But if it wasn't a good game, if it was 0-0 or if it was a bit dour, he'd say, "Go on, good luck, take it easy, I'm out," and he'd pop and whatever. But it's mad because, and I think I said this before. I know I've said this before. He wasn't a Man United fan, and initially he was a very typical ABU. He was like, "Oh, jeez, it's not yous again winning," and like this, and we'd have a bit of crack in the house and whatever. But I go to visit him in the graveyard and stuff like that. But the one place I feel more kind of close to him than anywhere is Old Trafford. Which is mad because he wasn't a United fan, but he would have come over to quite a few games with me. And it would have been kind of me. That would have been, as my sister spoke about at the funeral, that was me getting my time with him. I'd say, come on, we'll go to a match. And he'd say, oh, Jesus, you know, because you're getting on a little bit. And I'd say, come on, we'll go on the boat, or we'll fly over and we'll do it. And, you know, oh, come on, we'll go, you know, and we'd sit there and it'd be good crack, you know. And I think probably the most memorable game I spent with him was a Manchester derby. From what I recall, I think Chris Smalling might have got a couple of goals. We beat them 4-2. And I just have a picture of him, because obviously we're in the Stretford end, and I have a picture of me and him like this. And then the next picture on the camera roll is the scoreboard, you know, and it's mad. So like, even I go there, and the first thing I think of, like, I look at that seat beside me, like, and it's usually Andrew or Brody or someone who's in it, and I look at that seat and I'm kind of like, he's there, which is mad, because he wasn't a United fan.
Yeah, that's the old man's seat still. It's like when you walk into the house, that's the old man's armchair.
Well, actually, you know the story. My dad's chair is the one I'm sitting in.
I know, yeah.
So when he passed away and there was a few things going on in the house, I just turned around and says, anyone puts their hand on their chair, they're fucking dead. Pardon me, French. And they were like, what? And I says, yeah, that's coming to my house. And they were like, what? What are you talking about now? Like, that's Mam's and all. I was like, no, that's my chair. Like, I'm taking that. So I'd say he wasn't dead. He hadn't gone long, and I just walked into the gaff one day. I said to her, listen, I'm taking that chair. And she was like, away you go, you know, like that. So we took it in. It's still the same shape, and it still has the legs and the wheels on it. But we got it done up in the blue to match up with the bed and whatever else is going on.
Do you know what you'll have to do? If they do decide to redevelop or crash it down and build a new Old Trafford, you'll have to get the seat pans. The seat
screw
pans,
off the seats.
You'll have to take the seat pans
100%.
Get them framed or something up there with a bit of Astro or something like that.
100%.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's mad, like, and it's so, even like, I go out and, you know, you're talking to the headstone and your hand on it, the whole shoot match. As soon as we get to about like 5-3 and the team starts coming down the tunnel, I'm gonzo. The head's gone, the eyes are gone and all, and I'm, you know, it's mad.
Yeah. You're reading sections of the program you'd never read.
Do you know what I mean? Oh, how's that going down there? Yeah, it's
they're the sponsors this week. Yeah, they're the sponsors this week. Yeah. Big up, Doug. Good to see you, pal. Doug in the chat there. Hope you're well, my friend. Hope you and the missus and the kid are doing real well. Big season ahead of us again. Long time no speak. Yeah, I always hit up your stuff on Twitter, stuff like that. You'll know Doug goes in nice head. Doug at the moment is going through a phase of having lots of let's say discussions with Arsenal fans, I would say.
Is Doug a gunner?
No, Doug's a Liverpool man.
Okay.
But he gets into these confrontations, and I'm always in there to slide in as the backup, you know me.
Doug, I have to say, Doug, like, I don't know, it's obviously not just you. I find Arsenal fans so difficult, it's scary, man. I really do. Like, they blow me mind with some of the...
I've had, you know something? I used to have a lot of time for them, and I used to have a lot of time for Arsenal. I think I've said it before, if I didn't follow Liverpool, I probably would have followed Arsenal. And it's just weird that way. But I just noticed over the last 2-3 years now, it's become so unlikable, isn't it? It's become so unlikable, you know?
They really are.
Absolutely. But listen, Doug, great to see you in there. Absolutely great.
And Doug has hit the nail on the head there, hasn't he?
Different breed, for sure.
They've, with Kirkes and Frimpong and Verts. That's getting out of the traps, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to be talking transfers. We're going to be talking fixtures. I don't know if you've seen that new Ronaldo contract. Did you see the detail?
Yeah.
My God. 40 years of age, going up to 42.
Did you see the
16 staff?
Just before I came on, I had the phone in my hand, and of course I'm scrolling down Instagram, and who does it go to? Ronaldo, and he's released this video, and he's walking on the sand and all. Have you seen it?
Floating, probably. I haven't seen the video yet.
Right? No. But the first comment underneath it is from David De Gea.
I've seen that. Yeah.
All for free. I just I love it, Dave. I love it.
Yeah. And you know something? I read through the details of the contract today. I have it here on a slide actually, but I went through the details of it today. And then when I got to the end, it just occurred to me as well. And it's all tax-free.
Oh,
I was going, holy fuck.
It's just nuts, isn't it? There's been some, and I might touch on it very quickly. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but there's another podcast, and it's had Troy Deeney on. Have you seen this?
Is this the one where he was talking about the contract with the agent?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And he's on 50 grand a week at Watford.
Yeah.
And Leicester have just won the Premier League, and Leicester have money on the table for him.
Yeah. So
he's going in to redo the contract, and he goes in, and your man says, "Oh, listen, I think we can get a few more quid out of him, bloody blah." So they get to 100, and he says, "How are you fixed?" He says, "Yeah." And your man says, "I think we can go a bit more." So then he goes in and he says, "You know, we want a box." But he says 10 is no good to Troy. He's a big family. Right. So the boys say, "Okay, we'll give him 2 boxes and we'll knock the wall down between them." And then he's at 130 grand a week. And he says to him, he says to the agent, "Are you all right? Are you covering this?" He says, "I'm doing all right, you know." And he says, "What do you mean you're doing all right?" He says, "Like, I'm really well looked after." And he said to the agent, "Make sure you get out of it what you want out of it, you know." So the agent says, "You sure?" He says, go for it. So of course he adds a bit of cream on top for himself, gets it signed off by the PFA, and they're just about to sign the contract, and he turns around and he says, "Oh, and by the way, them ramps out the front are destroying me car. I want them taken out as well." And your man says, "No problem. It's damaging all the cars. Don't worry."
This is real Gaza levels, isn't it?
130 grand a week, right?
Yeah.
A box for 20 of his family. The speed bumps taken out of the car park. Like, this is just, and then somebody underneath is like, "Has anyone watched this lad play football? He is fucking
Did you
terrible."
see the story where the agent said to him, "Come out and walk onto the pitch here with me and pretend
like
having
it's not going well.
Pretend like you're pissed off and all." Like, it's unbelievable, isn't it? Troy Deeney, 130 grand.
130 grand a week.
Absolutely brilliant. Folks, we're going to be asking you tonight as well. We seen this the other day and I popped it into ours, the Sky Sports. Who is sports GOAT? Won't throw it out there yet, but have a think about it. And if you want to put it in context, if you're trying to arrive at a decision, tell me who's that sporting person you would like to have a last meal with or something. Who's that sporting person? Have a think about it during the show. Drop it in the chat. We'll have a think about it during the show as well and see if we can come up with a few names. Have a bit of crack. Bit of crack, as they say. Right, let's get into Brentford. Talk to me about Brentford. I haven't gotten your thoughts on this yesterday. All sorts of stuff going down, links being dismissed, all this kind of stuff and all. Talk to me in general about the two boys potentially. Then talk to me about Brentford and how you feel about that. Obviously, since Thomas Frank exited the building for Spurs, players being linked with moves away, all that kind of stuff, and not generating a huge amount of money either in order to reinvest, but in terms of Norgard and stuff like that. But talk to me, what you think of Brentford at the moment? How are you feeling about it going into the season?
I think it's very difficult at the minute to know what we're going to see. Obviously, losing Thomas Frank, like Brentford are a very analytical team. They work behind the scenes on the numbers a lot. And they have a certain amount of numbers that they use to drive the stats that they want to play with and stuff like that. So, like, I don't think a lot of that will change. I think Andrews is a fan of that. And I think he'll be okay to use a similar sort of metric. And I think the problem is he a guy? Is he a leader of men the way Frank was? Because I've watched Frank and his team talks, and I've watched some of the behind the scenes stuff at Brentford, and you know, as much as they're an analytical team and they play with statistics and stuff like that, Frank's a real good manager. You know, he's a really good manager. He seems to have a lot of empathy for the players, whether they're doing well or whether they're guys who aren't doing well.
And they have a huge respect for him.
Huge respect for him. And that's going to be tough to, you know, that's going to be tough to kind of to match up with for Andrews, you know. Duff, I think, could be the spoiler. because I think Duff is a big personality. And he's a much bigger personality than Andrews.
I spoke on Monday's show and I got the feels of it. Of course, we haven't got Duff confirmed or anything like that.
No.
Where it's conjecture at the moment. But I got that whole Eddie Howe Tyndall feel to it.
Martin O'Neill, Roy Keane.
Yeah.
That kind of gig as well, right?
Yeah, that kind of, you know what I mean, where you have this animated lunatic on the sideline. And not that Eddie Howe isn't animated, but he's a bit more.
No, but he's not Jason Tyndall. Yeah, absolutely. And the same way Martin was, Roy Keane was Martin O'Neill and vice versa. It's a nice, I suppose, it could be a very nice blend. Because obviously it works at Newcastle. It worked at Ireland and stuff like that for Keane and for Martin O'Neill for a while. Andrews is very highly thought of and has been for a number of years as a coach. Now, I think that the difference here is you've got Duff coming in who's been manager of a club. He's now going to be taking the coaching sessions, and you've got the coach in Andrews who is now going to be the manager of the club. So it's roles reversed, which might be tough for the two boys. I mean, Andrews might be a guy who wants to go and spend a lot of time in the training ground, but if he's got to look after a lot behind the scenes, that might not fit the bill, and he may have to leave it in Duffer's hands. And I think Duffer, there's two things about him. The lads at Shells absolutely love him. They adore him.
Yeah.
But he is like Marmite. You love him or you hate him. And that he could galvanise that Brentford squad. He really could, but he could also be quite divisive in there if things aren't going very well, I believe.
Yeah, I think if you look at his post-match interviews with Shells, I think he's his analysis of what happens in the game tends to be very directed at times at the players, and very analytical and precise to a player at times. And I just don't know. I don't know in the Premier League if that motivates players or switches them off. So
I think you get away with it. I think you get away with it in the electricity to a degree because you're Damien Duff. You've played for Ireland at World Cup. You're Irish icon. Yeah. You've played for Chelsea, Newcastle, Blackburn. You've played Champions League football. You've won league title. You've done all of this, so it's huge.
Yeah.
And don't forget, in his day, Duff was probably, the second or third best Irish footballer we've ever seen. He was phenomenal.
He was phenomenal.
He was absolutely phenomenal. In our time, I don't think we've seen any better than Duff, Keane, and Keane. The three lads were just outstanding. All very, very different and did different jobs and stuff like that. But I think he'll garner a certain amount of respect in that sense. I think from the squad's point of view, though, I think they're gonna have to stop hemorrhaging players. If we look at it at the minute, Flecken is gone from last season. That's one from your starting 11. Norgard, starting 11, gone. Mbeumo, starting 11. He hasn't gone yet, but he's inching closer.
He's gone.
That's 3 you're starting 11.
And then a lot of links throughout the squad as well.
Yes. And it's also down the spine of the team.
Yeah.
And they brought in the boy Michael Coyote. He was there on loan from January to say May. He was on loan from Fiorentina. They made the deal permanent. I think it cost them about 14 million. Right wing back, looks tidy. They've obviously brought in Caoimhín Kelleher to take the position of Mark Flecken. So again, two nice additions to the squad. The big thing will be how do you cover the Norgard situation, and if Mbeumo leaves, you now need to find 30 goal involvements between goals and assists. And that's going to be difficult for a team like Brentford.
The Visa Mbeumo situation very much reminds me somewhat of at Spurs when we had Son and Kane.
Yes.
And then when Kane left the building, there was a massive drop-off then because that connection and that understanding between these players, we've seen it this season just gone, was absolutely phenomenal. And when you lose that, it's like losing the wife, you know, and you're out back on the gig again, kind of thing, you know. It's a
Yeah.
difficult one, you know. Would you be saying if you're the players here? Obviously, they had a conversation with Thomas Frank at the end of the season. It was fairly obvious that the plan that was in place was going to be triggered, and it was spoke about well before we all found out about it, I would imagine. If you're in that if you're in that Brentford changing room now, are you a bit disappointed in the change up? Were you expecting a higher?
Very much so. Well, I don't necessarily think, and don't forget, you know, obviously it was a very different time because when Thomas Frank came to Brentford, they weren't an established Premier League club the way they are now.
Yeah.
But I'm sure when Thomas Frank came to Brentford, it was quite underwhelming.
Yeah.
In a very similar way to maybe a Keith Andrews. And sometimes that's not a bad thing where you come in and there isn't a lot of pressure on you because nobody really expects a whole lot. And I mean, what would be a good season for Brentford this year? 15th? You know, with losing your manager, if you add the manager into your if you add in the manager to your starting 11, and let's say if your manager and 11, you have 12, right? You lose your manager in 3 years starting 11, that's a third of your team, right? Now, if Brentford were to go this season, finish 15th and chug along and plug a few holes and, you know, start to see shoots of green because of maybe players that they brought in this summer, I think I think the fans would be much happier going into next season then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because I just find with Brentford, I think Brentford have higher expectations of wanting to become something a bit more than what they tend to be. I think they have their eyes set on that bar being a little bit higher. I think the problem is when you look at Brentford, week on week, they're highly competitive in games. Okay, they don't always get the results that they want.
No.
But they certainly always perform really, really well, and they're always impeccably coached. And
I think that's where a lot of the analytical stuff comes in. You know, like there's so much work being done in the background from scouts and technical analysis and, you know, numbers on how we need to attack here and we need to get a certain amount of crosses in the box, which means we get a certain amount of shots on. Like they're so analytical with what they do, and that'll all. I don't think that'll change. I think Andrews will go in and try and if he's clever, he won't change a whole lot. You know, and what he'll do is Flecken leaves, he'll put Queeveen in there and go, all right, like for like, we're probably at a similar level, maybe slightly ahead. Okay, we've got the boy Coyote in now, we've got Norgard leaving. What can I get in, you know, to do a better job than what Norgard did? What can I get in to do a better job than what Mbeumo did? Maybe not a better job. Maybe we see Visa come out to this side because Visa play a lot of football from the flanks until Ivan Toney left. So maybe we see a situation where it's going to be Sade on one side and Visa on the other, and then we'll see somebody come through the middle. So they'll change the style a little bit, you know, and change the positioning rather than trying to just plug the same gap and do the same thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe change it up a bit. Yeah, it'll all depend, I suppose, on who they get in and how their season starts. But certainly,
I think for so many teams, recruitment is going to be key. That will give us the guide to where they see themselves going and where they're going to kind of pitch themselves. Like, obviously, and we'll talk about it in a couple of minutes, Liverpool's recruitment at the minute is kind of blowing everybody out of the water. I suppose Man City have done quite a bit as well. But I mean, other than that, there's so many teams in the league who haven't gotten off their wallet yet or their checkbook. Like, it's scary.
Yeah. I think when we spoke about it, we know they're waiting for the July trigger to happen, and then I think then we'll see.
They are, but there's so many teams back sooner than that. Like, the first game of the season is the 15th of August. United go back to pre-season training on the 7th. Like, if we're back on the 7th, the likelihood is there's some other clubs getting in around then. Like, Newcastle don't have anybody in the door. Not one player.
Yeah, but the likelihood is all the work is being done. It's just the timing of the triggering.
I don't know.
I honestly think the first 2 weeks in July we're gonna get bombarded with here we go.
But would we not have seen an awful lot more in the background.
I
Like,
don't
it's
know.
very hard to keep
With the
stuff quiet around
yeah,
here.
but with the way the market has been inflated, and with the way the values have been inflated and stuff, where nowadays you're paying 40, 50 million for bang average at times.
Well,
I
we
think
saw the other day Newcastle put 45 million on the table for Anthony Elanga,
yeah.
and Forrest went, not a chance, lads, go again.
So there you go. So that's why I think are a lot of teams just staying quiet and have they done their scouting. Maybe a lot of teams are looking at like the Leon situation now, where there's obviously going to be players there available and stuff like that at a reasonable price. Maybe they're looking at who's this next star that's going to come out of the World Club Cup, who they can tie down. Look at these South American teams at the moment, and they're doing pretty well and stuff like that.
Really well.
Is there players there that they can take and stuff like that, and getting much more dynamic and cleverer in their scouting? Because
the issue with the South American lads is always going to be the work permits.
Yeah.
But they have to have played in 70% of the games for the national team in the year previous.
Yeah.
And that's really tough because a lot of the players that get picked in that Brazilian squad are guys who play in Europe.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of lads from Brazil, meaning to get a work permit is so difficult.
Yeah, but we've also seen the evolution of the likes of players, the Uruguayans, Chile, Paraguay, not Paraguay.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, but we'll see. I think it's going to heat up and it's going to happen pretty quick because there's a lot of teams that have a lot to do. But let's discuss what I said we do tonight. Is we'd have a look at what we're going to do is maybe pick 4, 5, 6 teams or whatever it is. See how many we can get through. Have a look at kind of the business it's done and track it. We'll pick different teams next week and the week after, and then
absolutely.
We'll be getting our kit episode will be coming up soon as well, where we look at the kits, one of our favourite shows of the year and stuff like that now. But I said I'd kick it off here. Let's start with Arsenal, okay? Because Arsenal is obviously a hotbed of conversation. I didn't include all the dealings that are in there. If it's some academy player undisclosed or something like that. I didn't bother with it. It's the more specific stuff I'm looking at. How have you felt about Arsenal so far in what they've done? Obviously, Partey's gone out the door as well. They brought in Norgard. Let's assume at the moment Zubamendi's done for the purposes of this. Same with Mbeumo when we get to United as well.
I suppose Neto has gone back to Bournemouth. Neto was Bournemouth's number 2. Kepa was number 1. They've been able to take Kepa for 5 million and send Neto back to Bournemouth. Yeah. Right. So they plugged a hole in their goalkeeping ranks for 5 million. Kepa will do a fine job there beneath Raya. I've no issues with that. I think Zubamendi, he's been highly touted to come to the league for the last 2-3 years. I think that's a good deal. I think Norgard with Premier League experience is a good deal. I think with losing, Jorginho and losing Partey, probably bringing in those two, that's Zubamendi and Norgard, is real clever. I think the one thing with Arsenal we're all waiting for is the here we go on a striker, because that's going to make or break Arsenal this season for me.
This evening as well, now they're linked with the centre-back. Did you see it? Christian something or other. Christian Murar. I don't know. He's big lad. What's his name again? Christian. Is he playing in France at the moment or something like that?
I didn't see anything.
Well, let's see. I'll get it here now. Chat away if you want. I'll find it here.
Well, I'll drift down to Chelsea, I suppose. You've obviously got Liam Delap has come in, did okay so far in the Club World Cup. 30 million was a good deal for Chelsea there, especially considering they've netted themselves about 36.9 million from getting to the knockout stages of the Club World Cup. So, I mean, you're nearly 7 million up, and you've managed to get one of the hottest prospects, English striking prospects of the last number of years. The boy, William Estavio, this kid is absolutely unbelievable. He is unbelievable. If you've watched him in the Club World Cup, he is such a good footballer. I think he's going to be a massive addition. And also, somebody that's come back is the boy Andre Santos, who had a phenomenal year at Strasbourg in Ligue 1. And he looks like he could go straight into the Chelsea starting 11 and make a difference,
It's
So
a Christian Mosquera. He's a Spanish central defender.
he's a Spanish under-21 international. Is
Yes.
he Villarreal or Valencia?
It doesn't say here.
He's Villarreal or Valencia. I think he's Villarreal. I don't have my phone. It's over on charge. He's a real tidy centre-back. Are Arsenal looking at him as well, yeah?
Yeah, Arsenal, apparently they're engaging with him at the moment, and apparently it's going to happen. But what have you made, before we go back to Chelsea, just let's finish up on Arsenal here. Yeah. What have you made of the striker situation here? That they're kind of, are they playing Sesko off against Guillergues, or what way do you think this is going? Or
I don't think they've made their mind up, to be honest with you. I think they're looking at Sesko as a more longer term solution to the problem. But I think the worry there is, if he doesn't manage to hit the ground running, you're in a very similar situation where you've just shelled out 70 to 80 million and you still don't have that finished article as a striker. Now, for me, I think this is a really easy fix for Arsenal. I think this is go and get yourself Victor Gyökeres and put him into the puzzle and let the pieces around him work and let him do. Because Gyökeres is hitting the ground running. He's played in England. He's played Champions League. He plays international football. He's big and physical.
Bags.
He bags goals like they're going out of fashion.
Killer in the box.
He really is. He really is. I think that's, it's probably moves away from the strategy that they would like, because he's that little bit older and they're going to probably have to, pay him a little bit more and stuff like that. But I think this is solving your problem. This is what Liverpool did really well with Virgil van Dijk and Alisson. There was two positions in that Liverpool team that were stopping them from winning a league title. One was the centre-back position and one was the goalkeeper position. And Liverpool went, well, we're going to get a piece and we're going to jam it in at centre-back. And we're going to get a goalkeeper and we're going to jam it in there and it's all going to work. This is Arsenal's opportunity. Arsenal to go and put that piece in there, it could very well lead them to a league title. But at the minute, they just seem like they're lacking a little bit of bottle or something,
Is this we know with Arteta that he likes to control the narrative. Do you reckon he has kind of a fear of bringing in a big central forward character kind of guy who, we know what happened with Aubameyang and everything else, and we know the issues around it and stuff like that. Would he have a fear of, he likes to control very much the team. You can see it in there. Is there a fear that if he brings in a big star up front, or what we regard as a big signing up front, that could be kind of a little bit of a maverick, that he has maybe a little bit of a fear that maybe he won't be able to control this, or, is that the issue here? Is this because we're talking about this 3 years?
I think if that's the case, he shouldn't be managing Arsenal.
Well, that may be the case by the end of the season.
I think if that's the case, he shouldn't be managing Arsenal, because if you're Arsenal manager, think of how many people would love in world football that would love to have that job. To be brave is the least you should do, and to roll that dice and to go and do everything you can, to get to that promised land, to get to that league title. To give over a little bit of control in the dressing room, but to give yourself 30 extra goals a season, like, it's a no-brainer for me. I got to be honest with you. It's a no-brainer.
Well, listen, for 3 years it's been a no-brainer with us, for what we can see from
and from the Arsenal fans, because they've all spoken about it,
Yeah, no, I was just thinking today, and I was thinking, is he concerned that if he brings in, because we see it already, we've seen the issues with Granit Xhaka when he was in there, we've seen the issues, I've seen the issues even firsthand with Trossard and stuff like that. It doesn't kind of like Trossard, because Trossard's kind of a bit of a maverick at times. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like...
Do you know what I also think, though? And this is maybe not to his detriment. This is probably goes in his favour. I think at times, like with a Trossard, I think he's probably told Trossard in the background, pal, you're all right, but you're not as good as you think you are. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think Trossard liked that. And he probably told Trossard, you could do 3 or 4 of these things much, much better. And it just hasn't landed with him because Trossard sees himself more as a finished article and a guy who should be starting. And, so we got to remember, like, there's a lot of this we got to hang on the players as well, I think, as opposed to,
absolutely.
Because I know when we get to my club and we start talking about it, like, we got a number of them guys who think that they're bigger than they are. And it seems to be every club now has this, undercurrent of players that thinks that they're bigger than the collective. And listen, if that's what you think, that's what you think. But you're not going to last too long at most clubs with that kind of attitude.
Yeah, yourself. It's just when you look back at that Arsenal team that won that last FA Cup 5-6 years ago, whatever it was now, and you look at those players that they had in there. They had some really, really good players in there and stuff like that. And then he went in and he just hit it with a bowling ball and smashed it up. You know what I mean?
They did,
there was obviously a cultural issue as well.
Look at how many of those lads haven't kicked on since they left Arsenal.
Maybe, yeah.
Like Aubameyang's fallen off a cliff.
Do
you know whether it was?
Well, there was lots of other stuff with him as well. Like, I mean, he's
there was, but he went to Chelsea. He had another opportunity. It didn't go well there. He went somewhere else. It didn't go well there. It just doesn't. It hasn't worked for him. And there's a number of players that have been at Arsenal that I think, again, when things didn't work at Arsenal, they left the building. They thought, we'll be all right. We'll go somewhere else and show ourselves. And they've done fuck all.
What do you think about this? Would you have Trossard over Martinelli?
No, not for me.
No. Big up Romy. Lacazette is doing decent at Lyon again. Till the news.
He'll do well in League 2 this year. League 2.
He probably won't be at Lyon after that news, I'd say.
I'd say he'll be one of the only players that does stay.
Would you think?
Yeah, because don't forget, he left Lyon to go to Arsenal. And then he left Arsenal to go back to Lyon. So he'd have a love for Lyon. This would be similar to a Gigi Buffon staying at Juventus to bring them back to Serie A before, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you there. Interesting though. Right, go back and talk to me then about Chelsea.
Chelsea, the lap's a great signing. It's a great signing, and it really is. The boy William Estavio at Palmeiras has been phenomenal. If you've seen any of this kid, he looks absolutely electric. And then the guy who's not on the list is a guy that is a Chelsea player, and he's just returning from a loan. He's a guy called Andre Santos, and he played for Strasbourg this year in Liga, and he was unbelievable. He was one of the hottest prospects in Europe this season, on the continent, and he was already a Chelsea player. So, like, if we look at that, Chelsea,
they're heavily linked with Gittins as well. Looks like they're going to get the Gittins deal though.
I'm not sold on Gittins. I think I see a lot of similarities between Gittins and Noni Madueke. A guy that looks like, he has a trick and he can do a step over and bits and pieces, but I don't think there's as much substance at the end of it that I'd like, to be honest with you.
Big up, Luca. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Luca.
Do you kind of feel with Chelsea? We've spoken about how we called this project, didn't we? 2-3 year project, and then you would be fighting, challenging for the title.
Yes.
This is how we felt about it. Do you feel with the signings they've made now? They've obviously signed an awful lot of youth and an awful lot of young players and stuff like that.
Yes.
Do you feel maybe in this window they needed maybe to go out and get a sprinkling of experience to put in there?
A little bit.
Or are we still looking now? Are we still thinking now, looking at what they're signing? Are we into year 4 of the project? And we're still not
I think a little bit.
Title.
I think there's definitely some experience required. I think, if you look at them being one of the younger squads in the league, and the caliber of player, like, you're looking at the likes of Reece James, Enzo Fernandez, and Moise Caicedo being the senior members of that squad. probably, with Tosin Adarabioyo and stuff like that, maybe Mark Cucurella. They're still young lads to be the go-to guys. So I definitely think, they should be looking to bring in a little more. And listen, maybe they will. Maybe they will sprinkle one or two. I even think two would be loads. I think two would be fine, just to get a couple of extra bodies in who set the right example. Guys that are first on the training pitch in the morning, guys that are last off the training pitch in the evening. Those kind of guys, good characters around the place, because undoubtedly Chelsea have the talent, but do they have the experience? Do they have the self-belief? Do they have the will? Because at times, motivation for younger players can be difficult because they've already got everything in their hands, right? So what gets you out the door then to go and do that little extra bit that's gonna get you over the line? We've seen it for years at Manchester City with certain players, your Ruben Diaz, your Kevin De Bruyne, your Rodri, your Bernardo Silva, your Ilkay Gundogan, your Edison. These kinds of guys who just wanted to win. And I don't know if Chelsea has that, but I do know that they have the talent and the ability and the pool of players necessary. If they could,
the keeper would be a big area, wouldn't it? Keeper needs to be resolved.
The keeper is an area. I'm not sure they don't have the answer there already, to be honest with you. I'm a big fan of the boy Jorgensen.
Who's the other guy? Petrovic.
Yeah, Petrovic. I don't think it worked. Sanchez, it definitely didn't work. I think the boy Jorgensen could end up being the number one there. But I think if they sorted that out, now here's the thing. Could they go and make the goalkeeper one of the senior players? And add a guy at the back, 28, 29, been there, done it, bought the t-shirt, maybe a Mike Mannion sort of figure, right? Would that not have...
Yeah, and see, this is where I was coming from in terms of I want to take Chelsea serious in terms of going into the season. Because this is the season we predicted and called it, like. And I'm looking at them like, pulling out of a deal for Mike Mannion over a couple of million quid. And I'm thinking,
it's silly.
You're not serious if this is what you're doing, you know what I mean? And then I look at it and I think, like, when you heard they signed Liam Delap, did you feel Liam Delap going in there as the starting striker? What did you feel about that with Jackson? Or did you feel that Chelsea might still go out and get into that conversation for a Gierkes or a Sesko or a Lushman or whatever it is?
No, I think between Jackson and Delap, you're well covered, they are different. Jackson's obviously a little bit nippier. He likes to get in behind and stuff like that. The lap comes much shorter and links it. He's a much more of a kind of a Harry Kane. Drops in, lets guys go in behind him, and then comes back involved for anything that comes back and stuff like that. I think the lap will do really, really well for Chelsea. I got to be honest. And I was blowing that trumpet when I thought he was coming to United, so I'm not changing it because he swapped it for a blue jersey for London. I still think he's England's next number 9 in waiting. I absolutely believe, Harry Kane has been England's number 9 for the last number of years. I think Liam Delap is the next England number 9.
So with regards to Chelsea then, do you think Chelsea this season, obviously we're so tender in terms of the transfer window so far.
Yeah.
And we know that Chelsea can go out and do a madness at times as well. But looking at what you see right now, do you think Chelsea will be more, top 4, top 5, and maybe it'll be the following season when they transfer title? Are we to kick it on another year?
I think to get to the next level, they need a couple. I still think they need another centre-back. I still think they probably need another winger. And I still think that they probably need a little bit of experience, and that could be in the form of a goalkeeper or whatever, but I still think they need a little bit of experience, they need another centre back and a keeper and
a fully fit Reece James. A fully fit Reece James.
Absolutely. I've said it before, and I will absolutely back it up. For my money, when Reece James is fully fit, he's the best fullback in the Premier League because he's the most complete. He can defend, he can go forward, he has an engine, he can pass, he can shoot, he can defend, he can head it, he can tackle. Reece James is phenomenal. The issue is Chelsea haven't been able to get him on the pitch enough. And we've spoken about this with PSR and stuff like that. They're paying Reece James an awful lot of money to sit his arse on the bench. And that's only going to last, a very short time for my money. And I think if you don't see Reece James put in 30 league games this season, I think he's done at Chelsea.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we spoke about that already. When do you make that decision to have to move on? If it's just, we challenge.
I think this year is make or break for Reece James with the way things have gone over the last couple of years. If he doesn't play 40 league games for Chelsea this year, and if it's down to injury rather than selection, I think if he doesn't play 40 league games because of it, I think he's gone. Because I don't think they're going to continue to pay him nearly $200,000 a week to crowd surf and to sit in the bench.
And because he's such an influence as well, and because he's one of those players that you're not easily going like. It's all well and good him getting injured, but you're bringing in a Malo Gusto then, you know what I mean? And you're there looking going, the drop off is massive, And he's kind of that last link, isn't he? He's that last Chelsea boy kind of linking there. Really,
he is. Yeah, he's the link from Roman to the new project and stuff like that.
We'll wait and see what they do in the market, and we'll come back and reassess it before the season starts anyway. Let's get on to my own team, Liverpool. Everest reminded me there I had left Kerkez out, but I did the slide up yesterday, so Kerkez was confirmed today.
Did your homework early, no?
Always do it early. How have you felt about how Liverpool's moving? I've been quite shocked at how we've moved.
I've been shocked. Absolutely shocked. I think obviously, we knew Marmalade Philly was coming in after the loan and stuff like that. Yeah. That's why Keller has left the building. He's obviously going to be number 2. He'll be the cup keeper. We'll see how he gets on with a view to then probably becoming the number 1 the following summer, because I know Alisson's he's turning his head and looking at how far the head is starting to turn towards maybe a return home or Saudi or something like that, I like the Frimpong deal. I think the Kerkez deal is a great deal. He's one of the best left fullbacks in the league.
We spoke about him all season.
Great engine, really really good engine.
Really good both ways.
Yeah, he is. He's really good both ways. I don't want to be, and I've said it a number of times in the chat and stuff in our own chat. I'm struggling with the Wirtz one. I just think it's
the magnitude of it.
Yeah. I think it's huge for loads of reasons. Like you're blowing your own transfer record out of the water, right? We probably didn't see that happening this summer, and if we did, we probably saw it for maybe an Alexander Isak, who's your number 9, he's your lead, he's the guy. Do you know what I mean? I didn't see it for a Florian Wirtz because I'm still skeptical about how he fits into that Liverpool team. Not because he's not a really, really good footballer. It's clear as day the kid is a super footballer. He's technically gifted. He travels well with the ball at his feet. He's got spectacular vision and balance and stuff like that. So he is a really, really good player. I just don't know where he fits into that Liverpool team. I just don't. And I think that for me is going to be, certainly over the first 3-4 weeks of the league season, where slot decides to play him for me will dictate what kind of season Liverpool are going to have.
Yeah, I'm excited for the pre-season to see can we get little nuggets out of there of ideas of what they're thinking of doing and stuff like that and all. So it's going to be very.
Where do you see him playing?
I think he'll sit. I think Nunes will exit the building, and I think we'll buy a striker, and I think he'll just sit in behind.
And whose spot does he take? Dominic's?
I presume so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think an article came out the other day.
So you're going with Gravenberch, McAllister, Wirtz, Salah, a striker, and a lefty.
Yeah.
Probably going Diaz and a striker, maybe.
Potentially, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, possibly that way. Now, there's another theory out there at the moment that they might be looking at your boys' formation of the 3-4-3, and that's why they're looking at Gahey, that they could be playing at the back with Gahey, Van Dijk, and Konate, and then they're going to
Frimpong as a wing back would be better anyway because he didn't play in a flat back.
So push him up further, and Kerkez the same.
Your only problem with that is, are you then playing Salah and Wirtz as your 2 10s behind your 9?
Yes, and you're going slightly narrower as well to open.
You're going a lot narrower because you've got it.
Yeah.
So now what you're doing is you're changing your formation.
Mm.
You're moving your best player and you're changing his position on the pitch.
We're changing a lot. This
is where I'm worried. And here's the thing. I shouldn't be worried because if it doesn't work for Liverpool, it plays into my hands as a United fan. But like, I just think it's a huge, huge step for Liverpool to take after winning the league. I think had they gone out and signed Frimpong, Kerkez, Gahey, and a 9, I think if you'd have done that, I'd have gone, wow, that's amazing. And like, you might end up with 3 of those 4, right? But the Wirtz one just throws me. It just throws me because it's not really like you didn't really play.
It feels like it's going to be a massive move away from what we've been playing.
It does, because you didn't play with a 10 last season.
Yeah,
you played with 2 8s and a 6.
Yeah, it feels like this season we're going to maybe see the beginning of the slot era, if you like, in terms of on the pitch playing.
And I was a huge fan this season of Dominic Szoboszlai. He was one of the Liverpool players I had in my team. My fancy football fan. Yeah. He's an engine. And he brought a lot to the team, ground covered, tackles won, chances created, goals.
Real good relationship with Salah as well. Real good relationship with Salah.
He brought all of that. Now all of a sudden you're going, we're going to take that piece out. Yeah. And I'm like, why would you take that out? Like, that was only starting to develop.
See, a lot of it could be options as well, because they did an article the other day saying that Liverpool want to have 18 quality players in the squad there. So when you take a piece out and you put a piece in, the drop off isn't as big as what you see when you're looking at your bench. And listen, that's the goal of every team. We know that. But also in line with what you were saying earlier, the talk is that when Salah goes off, say, to the AFCON for 5 or 6 weeks, the talk is that Bradley steps in there and Frimpong takes on that task.
Yes.
So that should be interesting. And I think what they're doing there is, I think they might be also looking 2 years down the road. So obviously you're looking at Gahey. They've been linked with Hato. So I think they're planning as well a lot better going forward for when Van Dijk and Salah exits the building as well. That maybe Frimpong wasn't brought in necessarily as the right back.
Well, we do think, and we spoke about it already, we do think he is going to almost play between the 2 positions. That, if Bradley's injured or not in good form, he'll play as the fullback. If Salah's at the AFCON, he'll play as the right-sided attacker. If, it's a cup game and they want to play somebody out of position and whatever and give someone a break, he gives another option. You basically have 3 players for 2 positions between Bradley, Frimpong and Salah. But I still think, and it's absolutely not, I don't want it to work, because I don't necessarily want to see anybody fail. Especially not a kid coming from Germany with a huge price tag on his back and stuff like that. I just think had he been coming had Wirtz come to Manchester City, it would have been a slightly better fit for me, because he would have been coming in to take the KDB position, the number 10 role. And I think that's what he is. I think he's a 10.
Mm.
And I think you guys not playing a 10 and then spending all this money on a 10 to change what you... it's just dicey. It's just,
It's definitely a transition from where we've been, but I mean, obviously they've looked at it and like, you're talking about top level people here who've done their homework. They're not going into blind, but we can see. Let's move on quickly. Then Man City, another team that's done really, really well, kicked off their transfer.
I like a lot of their business, to be honest with you. Thierry Reinders, really, really accomplished ball playing centre midfielder. I think you've seen him obviously at the Club World Cup already. Looks very, very comfortable. And you add Reinders in there with the likes of Nico Gonzalez, who came in January, with Rodri, like with Bernardo Silva. You're now creating the next Manchester City midfield. I think Turkey is going to bring that maverick sort of a style. I think he'll do very well at City. I think he'll be a guy for your fancy football team with goals and assists and stuff like that. I think he'll do really, really well. I think Marmoush as well. We'll see the best of him next season. Nori sorts the left-back position as well. I think defensively at left-back, they struggled a lot this season. They're still going to have to bring a right-sided full-back in as well. Yeah. I know they've been linked massively with Tino Livramento. He's obviously away with the England under-21s. They reached the final of the Euros, so he's away there. Like,
is that a move you could see happening? Yeah, think Man City get that done?
I think so. And I think if you excuse me, I think if you're Manchester City and you go into the new season with a Eight Nuri at left back and a Livramento at right back, with Rodri back in the midfield, with Cherky there to sprinkle a bit of magic dust, maybe take that KDB role, with Haaland back, with Marmoush, with Reinders and Gonzalez being able to kick and hold the ball and stuff like that. I think all of a sudden you're seeing how...
Lots of options.
You've Doku, you've Savinho, there's a lot. You've Marmoush. I think...
If anything, it looks like they're reverting back to how we played this season. Because you have that proper back four in there, with your proper left back and right back. But
you see, this is the first time in a long time that he's going to do that. Because for so many years they've played with the four centre backs, and it's been crazy because centre backs, as good as they are defending, they're not great with the ball at their feet going down the line. Nathan Ake is a nice centre back. He's a decent left-sided centre back. He ain't a left back. Yeah,
the onus was always on the midfield.
always, and I think that seems to be the Pep way, because it also seems to be how Mikel Arteta likes to play at Arsenal. You've seen them go in with Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori, and Timber. That's four centre backs, and go in to do the exact same sort of gig, and to get your width from higher up the pitch, and concede very few goals, be really, really tight and stuff like that. But I don't think it's a great idea, if I'm honest. I don't love it. Don't love watching it either.
We shall see. We've certainly done some really tidy business so far, and probably more to do as well, no doubt. I'm going to skip over your own team because we come to that last, right? So Newcastle, not a lot to talk about. You're surprised at Newcastle? Are they still strangled with PSR? And do you think if Liverpool were to go in and throw 130 million on the table for Isaac, it might happen?
I don't think so. I think Champions League solved a lot of problems for Newcastle. Excuse me, in a PSR sense, I think they're in a better place than they were. Obviously they put the money on the table for Elanga the other day. That was 45 million. I imagine they'll try and go back in for Gahey, because it's going to be a much lower fee. If you guys are talking of 40, 45, they could probably have another nibble at Gahey. I do expect Newcastle to spend money. I thought the Lloyd Kelly deal was good. He had come in from Bournemouth on a free the previous year, and then they ship them out the door to Juventus for 20 million. You're going, that's real clever business. Obviously Jamal Lewis and Jamal Lascelles and stuff like that will be let go, and contracts and stuff like that over. I think the boy Cordero will come in, but I don't see him coming into the starting 11 or anything like that. He'll be a squad player. I think Newcastle could really do with like 3 or 4 players just to make the squad feel a little bit stronger. They're obviously trying to do something with Callum Wilson. They're trying to do some sort of a pay-to-play deal where it's highly incentivized that if he plays games, scores goals, he gets very well looked after. But I think for Newcastle, the big issue with Wilson has been we can't continue to pay you to sit on the bench or on the table.
I honestly think they should just move on, and I know that's harsh.
Oh, well, I think they should as well, because I think, and if anyone's watched any of that under-21s, the England under-21s, the boy William Asula, who was Newcastle's second choice last season when Wilson was absent, plays up front for the Danish under-21s, and he's a solid player. A guy who will get better as he gets games under his belt. But if he's pushed further down the line by an injured Callum Wilson, I don't think you get to see the best of the kid. And I think in a season or two, if he doesn't get enough game time, he'll also be looking to leave the building at Newcastle. And that's where Newcastle have to be careful.
Yeah, they're going to have to. And again, in this kind of like, they're so in terms of they're the wealthiest club now in the league, but yet they can't spend the way they want to and stuff like that and all, so I don't know.
Well, they've got the handcuffs on from PSR, and they are obviously in a much better position. I think if they hadn't made Champions League, we would have possibly seen Liverpool go in with that 120, 130 million bid. But I think because they've obviously getting a spot at the table, I don't think Liverpool will try and test it, because I think it, if it doesn't happen, it might make Liverpool look weak in a sense, and they won't want that either.
Well, we're not going to do that unless he puts in a transfer request, because obviously Newcastle aren't entertaining anything really. But tell us this: if you had seen a situation there where we went in there, let's suppose in total 150 million, are Newcastle in a better position if they accept that 150 million and then they go and reinvest that, because they could probably then spend 250, 280 in the market? Do they become a better team then if they bring in
possibly
world-class players? Okay, Isaac's going to go and his GA is going to go, which is huge. But I mean, what's to stop them going now? Let's say selling an Isaac to us for say 150. They have then 280 to spend. Then they go out and they potentially sign. I'm not saying they're linked to him or anything like that, but let's suppose they sign a Newsman or they sign a Gierkes or whoever it is, and then they flank him with the right people because they have the money.
With an Anthony Gordon, a Harvey Barnes, and a Jacob Murphy, and Anthony Alanga. You've got Joe Linton, Tonali, and Guimaraes in there. You get yourself. They've been heavily linked with James Trafford, actually.
I think that's nearly done, isn't it?
Yeah, which I'm a little bit surprised with, if I'm honest. Not for
it's not a huge uplift, is it?
Well, listen, it is in one sense, because Trafford's quite a bit younger than Nick Pope.
But Pope's a better keeper, isn't he?
No, I don't think so.
Think so.
I don't think he's a very, very solid keeper. Nick Pope has been tremendous in the league for Burnley and for Newcastle since he went there. I think James Trafford's a better goalkeeper, and I think he's a much higher ceiling because of how much younger he is. He's better with the ball at his feet. He distributes the ball better. He controls the area better, and he's a better shot stopper. I'd take James Trafford 11 times out of 10 over Nick Pope.
If Newcastle hold on to Isaac going into next season,
yes,
and then we know after this season coming, then I think he only has 2 years left on his contract. And Barcelona have been heavily interested in the guy as well. Is there a danger that they lose him to Barcelona then for 70 million, 80 million?
No, because we've seen, obviously, 2 years is still a long time on a contract. If you look at what some teams are getting for guys who only have a year left, You know, you're talking 60 million for a guy that has a year left. So why isn't that 100 for a guy who has 2 years left? Real Madrid paid 10 million to get Trent a couple of weeks early. You know, so like I still think, you know, he's now, and there is a caveat with that, by the way, because the other thing is previously Isak had struggled a little bit with injuries before he came to Newcastle, and he has gotten a little bit more robust. But like, if Isak had a bad year from an injury point of view and didn't play as much football as you would want him to play, then your 150 million could be turning into 90. Absolutely. Could be turning into 80. And that transfer fee is halving. Like, here's the thing. I think if Newcastle get an offer of 130 million or north of it, I think you sell him. I think you have to.
So. And especially if he's made the intention that he doesn't want to get into contract talks with them. So he's made the intention. He ain't signing a new contract. He wants to go.
If you're Newcastle, right? If you're Newcastle, I don't know this. I'm only asking the question. If you're Newcastle, excuse me, and you can get 130 million for an Alexander Isak, do you go to Bayern Munich and ask Harry Kane what it's going to take to get him home? Like, Newcastle have had his value drops. Like, yeah, I think so. I think Newcastle have had some phenomenal strikers over the years. Obviously, Alan Shearer and stuff like that. Isak now. Does Harry Kane come in? Because we know at the back of his mind, Kane's looking at that record still, right? So if he comes back to the league with a Newcastle where chances are going to be created, you're going to be in the top 5-6 teams in the club in the league. You'll probably play Champions League football. Like, Newcastle could see an Alexander Isak go out the door for 130 million and see Harry Kane come in the door for half of that. You know, and we know Kane is extremely robust and was in the league as well. You know, brings a lot, scores goals on sight, would drop deeper and create space in behind.
He's added assists to his locker as well.
Yeah. Like, you know, and then if you're a Newcastle, are you able to go and say, well, listen, we're getting rid of Isak, but we think we can get in Harry Kane and Eberechi Eze into our starting 11. If you take Isak out and you put Kane and Eze in, are you better?
I would think so, and I think that's the issue for Newcastle. The issue for Newcastle at the moment is if they want to raise the bar and see themselves as challenging in the future, they need to raise that quality just a bit more. They need to be a bit more clever in their movement.
Newcastle don't need. I don't need to be looking at a Newcastle bench and seeing Paul Dummett, Emil Kraft, Callum Wilson, and, you know, guys like that. I want to see, obviously, you've got Livramento on the right, you've got Lewis Hall on the left, you got Schär and Botman in the middle, you've got your Pope. Yeah, I think so, Romy, because obviously Eze will go in behind when Kane drops off short. Little give and goals, create the space. You've Gordon on one side, Barnes to come in, you've possibly a Lang on the other side, Jacob Murphy to come in, you've got Guimaraes and Tonali who run that midfield. You've the two fullbacks, the two young lads, Livramento and Lewis Hall. You have a goalkeeper in Trafford. You have Sven Botman, you know, hopefully over the injuries and stuff like that. Like, Newcastle have a lot going on there, but they need, Newcastle for me need to make their starting 11 stronger, because that'll make their bench stronger. That's what they need to do.
Yeah, so when you're plugging a player in, you're plugging a player out onto the bench, and then you're pushing out a Wilson or a Kraft or whatever. Then
yes, 100%.
This is where we talk about having that core 18 players with a certain level of quality. You know, absolutely, 100%. That's like an on my pro clubs, lads. You're cooking tonight. There we go. You ask the right questions, you get the right answers. Right, your own club, Man United. Talk to me.
Yeah, like, I suppose at the minute, happy enough. Things have been slower than I would have liked. Cunha, I'm delighted with. Like, I just think, and we spoke obviously, I think if there's two players in the league that suit the system we want to play, I think Cunha and Mbeumo really tick boxes for me. Cunha obviously plays on the left-hand side, and he's right-footed, so he'll tuck in, and Mbeumo's on the opposite side, but they're both footed. They can go on the outside if needs be. They can shoot. They've got good touch. They've both got extremely good work rates, and they don't mind putting in a tackle.
Powerful.
I love the two additions. I think the one problem we see is it's like buying a Ferrari, having a Mbeumo and Cunha, and then filling it with apple juice when you have, Rasmus Højlund ahead of it. So that has to change. That has to change in order for, I think, us to see the best of Cunha and Mbeumo. I think the 9 has to change. Now, I have.
Do you know how I compare this to? This is like when we talk about Cole Palmer, and we talk about he creates so much. But if Jackson's on the end of it, or Madueke's on the end of it, or whatever, you can create all you want, but your numbers aren't going to look good. You're going to look like you had a terrible season.
I do think, looking at what we have at the minute, I would be much happier to see Joshua Zirkzee as the 9, even though he's not a 9. I think he's big, he's physical. He can drop short, he can pick up the ball. Some of his one-touch play and his little balls in behind, is phenomenal. And I think if we played him as the 9, with the two boys as the 10s playing around him and off him, that would sit much better with me than Højlund. Even though Højlund was, say, in possession of the spot last season, I just don't think Højlund holds the ball up well enough. I think he gives it back way too often. I think his touch isn't as good as it could be. I don't think he runs the channels well enough. I think physically he's a little bit on the light side. Like, I genuinely, and I know we spoke about this, I could not believe the size Joshua Zirkzee was when I got to Old Trafford. Because he doesn't necessarily look as big on the screen. Now, obviously, since I seen him in real life, I went, holy shit, this guy. So I see him in a different light. This guy is huge. He's about 6'4". He's about 17 stone of muscle, right? And he's not gonna be a Victor Gyökeres in a sense that he's not going to score the kind of goals that Gyökeres can score because he's not as good a finisher as Gyökeres. However,
the sum of all parts.
He could be the focal point up front, which allows the two pieces of the puzzle that you've brought in to work better. I mean, if we're looking at the right wing back position and we're talking about a Mad, and we're looking at the left wing back and we're looking at Dorgu, and now you've got Cunha and Mbeumo. So you got Dorgu, a Mad, Cunha and Mbeumo, and possibly a Bruno who can go in behind. I'm all right with Zirkzee coming short and not getting involved. It gives me Roberto Firmino vibes, now he's certainly not, and I'm not putting him in a bracket with a guy like, but I think that's the only thing that I would say, if nothing happens at 9, we've got Zirkzee, and I think if nothing happens at 9, you may see Cheeto Obi go in as the 9. Because I think with the little cameos we got near the end of the season, and then obviously the friendly game in the Far East and stuff like that, I think he's just starting to turn it that people are now going, why isn't this kid playing? Because at the start you're like, why is this kid playing? And now all of a sudden it's going to be, why isn't this kid playing? So I think he's probably in the mix as well.
And rightly so, should be.
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely.
Delighted, obviously, not delighted, but, Ericsson did really well for us. We brought him in on a free from Brentford. He did well. He had his limitations, but, we can't hurt him for that. I think Evans did very well when he came in. United weren't in a good spot. Evans never let us down. Has taken over a recruitment role at the club now, where he's going to look after the loan players and stuff like that. And again, Victor Lindelof is a guy who probably wasn't up to the standard of Manchester United, but never ever let us down, in a sense of always went out, always put effort in, always put his head in the way, always tried to do his best. So like, sad to see the lads leave, but also delighted to see them leave, because the hope would be that what comes in is better than what's left, you know?
Yeah, get you. Goalkeeper.
Yeah, a lot of links still. Obviously Emi Martinez is the link. Senny Lemons, the guy at Anderlecht in Belgium, he's obviously been linked heavily as well. And then in the last day or two, the boy John Victor at Botafogo. I think Pep spoke a good bit. Pep spoke a good bit about. No, it wasn't Pep. It was Luis Enrique, because they beat PSG. And Luis Enrique said, you know, the defensive line and the goalkeeper is one of the best we've come up against all season. He said they just were so cohesive. They work so well as a unit, and the keeper, you know, did a great job. And he's apparently available quite cheaply. I think you're talking 6 to 8 million. He's 29 years of age, and he's a big kid. He's 6'5", so he's a physically demanding goalkeeper. So we'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, I think with what United's facing, I think you got to resolve your goalkeeper situation, but you don't necessarily want to throw the bag at it either. You know what I mean? So, because there's a lot of important stuff to be done. So
I still think if I know the level that Newcastle are going to for James Trafford, like if they're going to do a deal with Burnley and it's at 16 million, let's say, I think that is just such a no-brainer. It's scary, because I think obviously if you bring in a guy like Martinez, he fixes the job now, but it also puts a limit on how far he can go, because obviously he's a little bit older and stuff like that. I feel like the same obviously with the other lad, the Brazilian lad, because obviously he's 29, he's nearly 30. But I think with a guy like James Trafford, if you bring in a goalkeeper like James Trafford for anywhere close to the 20 million, and he ends up being your goalkeeper for the next 10 years, that's a phenomenal piece of business. So that for me would be more important than going to do something else, you know, because for me, we spoke about it, I think the goalkeeper is huge, because I think it gives so much, it builds so much confidence in the back three, you know, and we're probably looking at this season a back three of Aiden Heaven, Lenny Yoro, and Matthias de Ligt. You know, your background players are going to be Maguire in the centre, Lissandro on the left, and probably Mazraoui on the right. I think that'll be, you know,
as you said, that's a bench uplift.
It's a bench uplift as well, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what we need.
Yeah. That situation with Kanate is that contract talks have broke down, and the talk is he plans to leave Liverpool at the end of this season. Do the same thing as what Trent did. He's been linked with Real Madrid. That's the talk.
And he's only got a year left, has he?
He's only got a year left. So the talk at the moment is we're going to crowbar him out the door or something like that is the talk.
So then with Gahey coming in, is it straight swap kind of thing, or?
It wouldn't be, well, it'd be kind of straight. It could potentially go that way as a straight swap. If they do get it resolved, then like we spoke about that back three, maybe, I don't know. I know they're still looking into the lad Hato as well, from what I can remember. So we'll see what happens. And they were linked with the boy off Sport, and what's his name, Ignacio, is it, on the left?
Yes.
Left side central. So we'll see. We could have a situation where they might have to move and stuff like that. We're not going to have another one walking away like this. This just was painful this season. Listen, all the Trent crap.
I don't even think him walking for no money was the issue for me. I just think it was the furore around it for a lot of the season that could have resulted in you guys dropping a ball somewhere along the line, and that's just not acceptable.
What Slot did well to dampen it down, because he just dampened it down every time. But I'd rather Arne Slot talking about other stuff than that kind of crap this season. As well, you know. Obviously, you've players to get out the door and stuff like that as well. I read this evening, Jadon Sancho, the discussions with Juve had broken down because he's not willing to move on the wage.
Well, Juve and Napoli have both apparently spoken to United, and United want 25 million, and both clubs are okay with that. The issue is he won't move on the wages, which kind of says it all, really, doesn't it?
Well, it's like what we spoke about. Some of these guys just don't want to play football. They think their shit don't smell, and this is the issue. But reality will kick in. I don't think they even care. We hear about these guys going like, you really need to go get a moving ball out because you're coming into a World Cup year. I don't think they even care. I don't think they care. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, Jadon Sancho should, for me, be looking at the likes of a Scott McTominay, who was a bit part player at times at Man United, went to Napoli, won Serie A player of the season, right? What's to say Jadon Sancho doesn't go to Napoli in a slower league, set the place on fire, and all of a sudden for the World Cup then he's back in the England squad and looking like he could be a danger because he's confident and because he's had a slightly handier season because the pace of play has been a little bit slower. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know what it is? I just think, I look at some of these guys and I just think they've fallen out of love of football. And I think when you fall out of love of football, I think it just goes by it.
I don't know whether Jadon Sancho was ever in love with it. He always.
But that's why I don't think he has the heart for it either to go. Because you look at that, you look at what Anthony had to do this year to go to Betis and do what he had to do to regenerate. He was probably looking at it going, this is the last minute that I say this. I have to go out and I have to do this.
Absolutely.
And he did. He was sensational as well at times.
He did.
I don't think that's in Jadon Sancho. I just don't think.
No, I don't think so
Jadon
either.
Sancho will happily eat his lunch in the car park in Carrington and pick up his 325 bags a week or whatever it is and sail off into the sunset and not give a toss. I think football is the least of things that do be on his mind.
Yeah, I agree. Which is sad.
It's disappointing because it's like when we talk about Rashford as well. There's such a ball of talent there. Give your fucking head a wobble and sort yourself out. Fall in love with the game again, like what you did when you were a kid on the street. It's crazy stuff. And that's going to have a big impact as well, because if it does get to a situation where you can't get these guys to relent, like we spoke about Anthony, dropping his wage down because he wants to move, he wants to play football,
happy to lose 30% of his wages in order to be able to get a move away from the club and play football.
Be fucking happy again. Be fucking happy again in your life, like, you know what I mean? I can't understand.
And you know what? I think this also goes, I think Anthony may have realised that this Old Trafford thing, this Man United thing is a big fucking unit. This is a big weight to carry. Like, I can go to Betis and I can carry something that doesn't feel half the weight of that, and it makes everything feel a lot easier. And I think that was probably a realization with Anthony and stuff like that. And if there was, that's fine. He came with Betis and he had a great end of the season. He played games. I think Betis are going to do absolutely everything they can to try and keep him. I think obviously they sold the boy Johnny Cardoso the other day to Atletico Madrid for about 36 million. So they're probably getting close to having the kind of money available to them that they would like. It's whether they can then get Anthony to agree to a set of. But I mean, if you're Anthony, that's the perfect fit, right? Yeah. You've just balled out there. You go back there, you ball out again for another season. And if you ball out again for another season,
felt like home again.
Yeah, but if you ball out again for another season, right? At the end of next season, if you have 20 odd goal involvements, Real, Barca, and Atletico are all looking at you. They're all looking at you.
Plus, you've also laid down a marker in terms of your international and the World Cup and stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I just don't get it with these other guys. It's weird, but obviously that situation is vital because I think even though you might be forced your hand into some sort of loan moves and stuff like that, even as part of the club, those loan moves still piss you off. Even whether you're picking up a bit of the bag or not, and all, it's just frustrating that it's still a problem you're kicking down the road.
The thoughts of having to cross the bridge again is a difficult one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so too, Romy.
Spot on, Romy. Yeah, absolutely. Surprised that Ten Hag doesn't want him at Bayer Leverkusen.
He may end up there, and he may end up in that position that Wirtz is just, Now I think the only issue is, I think now Ten Hag will be scrutinised, and obviously, coming in and bringing in an Anthony where he brought him in at Old Trafford and failed. It's a risk because if you bring him in to Leverkusen and it doesn't work, it's Jesus Christ, pal. Did you not learn the first time?
Betis is the move. Betis is the move. Yeah, because you got to remember, you look at Leverkusen and how they're moving at the moment and what they're losing. You know what I mean?
Yes. They lost the boy Victor Boniface in January for 70-80 million. Like it's 200 million quid's worth. The boy Hincapié has been linked with a lot of places. Frimpong has left the building. So, like, they're looking at a huge overhaul.
Wirtz.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot has left, and like you're saying, he's after taking Kwanzaa off us for, I think it's 35 in total, 30 and 5 in add-ons or something like that. So
yes,
so he needs to be careful in the way that he spends money and stuff like that as well.
Absolutely.
Obviously, the level and the expectation of Leverkusen is raised.
It was also one of the worst things that he did at United at times was the recruitment. So that's one of the things that, will be scrutinised more than anything. The win record wasn't that bad. He picked up a couple of trophies. That was also okay. But the problem could be the scrutinising of who's he brought in. Has he had them before? Have they fallen on their sword? It's just sad, but it's football, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I suppose that's it. That's all we got to look at tonight. We were going to look at fixtures, but I love this transfer talk because we're catching up, aren't we? Really,
we are. Don't forget to just go back to the GOAT for me.
Oh yeah,
because I find this really tough. Like really tough. Do you have one?
I do. I have a couple. You see, that's the problem.
You see, this is my problem. I think I could happily pick a GOAT for every sport, but to say who is the GOAT.
Well, tell us this, because you're a coach. Who's your tennis one?
It's Federer.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. And I'm not necessarily a huge Federer fan, but I just think, I think the way he did things, the style and stuff like that, he won't finish with the most amount of slams. He won't.
How were the eyes for Nadal when the boys came out on the clay court with the plaque?
Yeah, it was cool. It was very cool.
It was very tasty, wasn't it?
Very cool. Yeah. And I mean, like, here's the thing. You're looking at the four lads. Like, in any single era, any of those four players would have been the best player to play on the fucking planet. We have four of them playing against each other.
Is that your Rushmore for tennis?
It's probably not your Rushmore, but it's close.
No, but I mean, is it yours? Obviously, from your era in tennis, what you've learned?
No, I have Federer and
Sampras.
I have Federer and Djokovic from this era.
Yeah.
And then I have Sampras and Agassi from
Were you an Agassi fan, yeah?
Oh, I was a huge Agassi fan, man.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
The first tennis racket.
Did I say something there the other day that he's not doing too well? Or is he okay?
So. I think he's okay.
Yeah, okay.
The two things I remember most as a kid, well, not both as a kid, but like I started playing tennis as a kid. There was always tennis rackets in the house,
Yeah.
And of course, like you'd pick up a racket and you'd play with the racket and whatever. But the first actual tennis racket I bought was a head tennis racket, because that's what Andre Agassi used. It was a copy of what Agassi used, and that was the one I wanted because Agassi was my guy, you know. And then I have another weird thing about Agassi. I don't generally read an awful lot of books. I read lots of articles. I listen to podcasts. I've only ever read one book cover to cover.
As in a tennis book or a book?
Any book.
Okay. And it's his, is it?
It's his autobiography. I brought it away on holiday one year, and I couldn't put it down, to the point where it was like, "Are you getting in the pool?" No, I'm reading, and I couldn't put it down, and it was an amazing story. But the others, like, I could pick anything else up, and even since, like, I've tried and I've picked up something that I have really interest in, I go, I'll read this, and you get it like 30, 40 pages in, I'm like, nope, I'm done, put it away.
No.
Not even a fucking chance, man.
Yeah, so not even. No.
He's not even on the Rushmore. He's not in the 4.
He's not even on the Rushmore's Rushmore, I don't think.
Like, he's phenomenal. He's absolutely phenomenal. Like, for me,
I think we could name 10 comfortably before we get to him.
Well, you're going Player, Palmer, Nicholas, Trevino, right? Seve. Like, the best golfer to ever walk the face of this earth is Tiger Woods. Like, there is no other option for me.
Yeah.
In the same sense, when, like, we talk about footballers, I can't even have an argument about who the best footballer of all time is.
You're gonna love Philip here now. Philip, you're gonna make his night on this one.
Right, go on. You're not far away, Philip. You're not far away.
He's a big All Blacks lad. This lad.
I sure am. Yeah, like, there's some special rugby players as well.
I have to say, I'll tell you one thing now. Probably the greatest funeral I've ever watched.
John Olamu's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Like, if you're gonna pass away, and especially the way he did and go the way you go, isn't that the way you want to head off? That was phenomenal.
Well, I think it's certainly a nice send off. I don't think you want to head off at the age and stuff like that.
No, but I mean, if it's ahead of you and you know,
yeah, I think
if you're gonna plan it, isn't that what you want?
There's a lot of respect and stuff like that. And I would also argue, for me, it's not Michael Jordan either.
In terms of the GOAT or in terms of basketball?
Basketball.
Right, who's your basketball one then?
LeBron James.
LeBron James.
Is it? LeBron. Yeah. LeBron is
Liverpool, man.
LeBron is like next level. Next level. Jordan did it in one of the best teams of all time, you know, with Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen and stuff like that. And they had a dynasty, they had a legacy. But, like, he doesn't have the kind of longevity that LeBron has. LeBron is an absolute machine. Not only is he a scoring machine, but he's a defensive machine. He covers so much ground. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, we kind of started this, right? Here's a good one for you. We kind of started this with kind of like, if you were trying to figure out your goal, who would you like to go with, say, for a meal, if it was a last meal kind of thing, you know?
Well, that's easy for me.
Yeah.
That's easy for me. That's real easy. That's Tiger Woods for me all day long and twice on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not even a question. Like, that's who I want
to. So is he your GOAT then?
He probably is. Yeah, I don't think there's anyone bigger in sport. He probably is. I just think what he's done it's just next level.
Here's a question for you. Aces will come in there with Pele and Muhammad Ali, right? Everyone knows Muhammad Ali. He'd be very high up on my list as well. Probably would be one of the GOATs and stuff like that and all, you know. in terms of what he broke down on. But if you had a choice between Pele and Maradona, where are you going with it?
I'd say neither of them had laced Messi's boots.
Yeah, but let's suppose Messi's not in the equation. Let's suppose we're going back now to a certain era. I'm leaning towards Maradona if I'm going for a meal now.
Do you know what? I'd probably do something strange. I'll probably say Johan Cruyff.
Yeah, not a bad shout either, yeah.
Larry
Bird, yeah.
Larry Bird was great, but he's now LeBron James.
Yeah.
Like, sport by sport, you're going Federer, Tiger, LeBron, Messi. What have we got there? We got football, basketball, tennis, and golf, right?
You can supply the driver, roll me.
Yeah, so I'm going Messi, LeBron. I'm going Tiger. I'm going who else? Roger Federer. Yeah. Yeah. Rugby player. You're probably going John Alamu.
Who'd be your Irishman?
Oh, Brian O'Driscoll is just. Oh my God, he is phenomenal. Phenomenal. Like when you talked about when O'Driscoll played, he played in an era when the All Blacks were quite dominant.
Yeah.
And he was the only player you ever looked at and thought he could get into that team. Nobody else would, Like even if you look at
O'Connell's meal would be too expensive,
right? But even when you look at even with rugby players, you could make a case for Lamu. The best fly half of all time is Dan Carter, and then the best kind of forward of all time is Richie McCaw for me. 3 All Blacks. So even there, who's the best All Black of all time? Sometimes the 3 lads don't even come into the discussion.
Yeah.
And so it's strange. It's different.
Yeah. So who did you say is your one?
Tiger.
Tiger's your one. So Tiger's your
one. Yeah. Tiger's my one.
Brian O'Driscoll, little machine.
Absolutely. And what I can just see there, and I didn't see it earlier, but I can see it now, is I can see an American football. Can you see the American football in front of the Pirelli?
Yeah.
So, that's obviously Tom Brady. Obviously.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Tom Brady. If I went back a bit further, I'd be thinking Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, those type of guys when I used to really follow it religiously. San Francisco 49ers. Incredible.
They've cricket balls there as well, have they? Are they cricket balls? The red ones at the front.
There's probably a cricket ball there, no doubt, yeah. Yeah, Tom Brady, absolutely.
Tom Brady. So you're Rushmore. You're picking your sports, but you're I'm going Tiger, LeBron, Messi, and Federer. There,
interesting. I didn't follow motorsport religiously and stuff like that, but obviously you've got your Mansells and your Sennas and obviously Schumacher.
I don't think anyone touches Michael Schumacher on a racetrack. I don't think anyone touches him. I think he's next level.
Senna probably would have been the nearest, wouldn't he?
Probably. He's certainly more revered.
Yeah.
Because I think obviously, Schumacher was German and had a certain kind of way he did things and stuff like that. And whereas I think with Senna, he was loved. How do you get on with Bam Bam?
Yeah. Absolutely. Goat of MLB, Joe DiMaggio.
Really? I think we could argue that as well, Rolls. You could obviously look at Babe Ruth, but you could also look at what was the lad? The lad that used to break the records year in, year out. What was the lad's name? Was it O'Dwyer? Is it O'Dwyer? Or Dwyer? Or fat Ronaldo, Messi, Tiger? Wow.
Not bad.
I've got two of them, Keith. I've got two of them.
Mm.
I don't pick Fat Ronaldo just because I'm picking Messi. So I pick a different sport then. But yeah.
Interesting. Who's your go to the Premier League before we finish? Yeah, in Babe Ruth, yeah. Babe Ruth. I don't follow baseball at all. I know Babe Ruth and stuff like that now, but I don't really follow baseball.
Trying to think of that lad's name. It was Mark something. And it was a reasonably Irish sounding name, like O'Dwyer or something like that.
Who was the lad that was smashing all the records and he got popped for the Peds? Remember they went back into the huge investigation, brought down the Balco. Remember the Balco thing? Remember?
No. No recollection of that.
There was a big. Remember, wasn't someone popped in it? What was his name? Was he half South American or something like that? Or what was his name? They did a huge documentary and he got popped for the stage. He was incredible. Like, what was his name? And it brought down. Remember the Balco thing at the time? And I remember at the time on the Balco listing. Then there was some wrestlers on the.
I'm sure Netflix will tell me in a minute when I go on because there's all those documentaries that are great.
Yeah,
best in the Premier League. I think I'd agree with Rooney.
That Henry was the best. He's the goat.
I think so. I think so. I think you can make lots of cases, but I think if I go into one, I think I go Henry, which is tough, obviously, because I'm a United fan. I would have preferred to go for a United player, but if you can certainly make an argument for Ronaldo, but I don't think we saw the best of Ronaldo until he left United. I know he won a Ballon d'Or at United, but I think after he left, he started to really touch heights. I think you could argue Shearer as well. I really do. I don't think Shearer gets enough plaudits at times for how good he was.
Do you argue at gigs?
I don't.
No.
Me personally, I don't. Is there guys that would? 100% there is.
Depends on what you judge it by.
That's,
Are you judging it by moments? Are you judging it by trophy haul? Are you judging it by longevity? Are you judging it by, I
don't go that route. However, there's definitely lads that would. 100%.
Yeah. Interesting. I thought I'd pop it in there just as an extra.
Listen, what else would we doing?
Yeah, that's it. Let's take a few comments and then we'll get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Keith saying Terry Henry, best in the Premier League, but my favourite Liverpool player of all time was Robbie Fowler. Shoot. Stevie Gerrard in Vicar Street tomorrow night as well, actually.
Is he, yeah?
Yeah, he is, yeah. I'm sending, I have a painting up in the attic of him holding the Champions League trophy, and it's kind of done like that Andy Warhol stuff.
Right.
And I'm sending it in to get signed because I can't make it, but Mark's trophies are there tomorrow night. So is
this a Legends 11 gig or?
No, I don't think so. No, it's a different crowd promoting it, but they got in touch with Mark to have the trophies on the night and stuff. So Stephen's over there. Stephen, who does be involved in Legends 11. Remember, Les Ferdinand said there's no coloured percentage. You ever seen that? That was mad, wasn't it? And then they went back and the 2% are coloured. Scholes or Drogba for me.
Who?
You're letting the side down there, roll me. We were going well tonight. Till that one. Who would be your Mount Rushmore for Irish sports stars?
O'Driscoll, Katie Taylor, Roy Keane, and I'm gonna lay claim to Tony McCoy.
It's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Not bad. Could you argue Salah has cemented as the best right wing player ever in the Premier League? It's definitely a case for it, isn't there?
Absolutely. I think though and I said this before over something else.
Gary.
I think when you start going,
is he not South American, no?
Best, right winger of all time, best left winger. We had this argument with a Chelsea fan recently about created the most chances in open play since the 8th of January and something else. And you're like, well, hold on. Many stipulations we putting in place here to facilitate this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's one of those conversations that's ever evolving, isn't it? Like when you get into them and stuff like that, and then it's back and forth. Right, folks, that's it. Next week we'll cover the fixtures. We'll take another look and stuff like that, and we'll have other stuff. We'll also pick 5 or 6 other teams, and we'll look at transfer business. And we will be in July, so it's a new PSR year. Registrations will be flying. We'll be on top of these here we go.
Money.
Spend it like you have it, or you don't need it. There you go. That's what we want to see. Look at Ronaldo. Imagine Ronaldo sitting back and going, if you just put that 4 million cost for the private jets and all, I think we could do something here. Shrewd operator. And 15% of the club. Folks, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification button and drop a like.
Subscribe because we don't have 15% of the club.
No, we don't, or anything near it. Right, talk to you soon, folks. Have a safe week.